Jeb Bush gets candid in a one-on-one interview with MSNBC. The former Florida governor sat down with our own Casey Hunt at a diner in New Hampshire to talk about everything from his struggling campaign and his rivals to his personal experiences with his daughter's drug addiction. Casey also asked him about the rise of Senator Marco Rubio and whether voters should consider Rubio's financial track record when they make their decision next year.
I think everybody needs to be vetted. I'm certainly, I haven't volunteered for the thoroughness of the vetting process on me, but you got to accept it. You're running for President of the United States. It's a pretty important job, and the press has a duty to vet all of us. I don't feel compelled to vet Marco Rubio. I think other people will do that.
Do you think his handling of his financial situations raises questions about his maturity?
What I'm concerned about is sharing my life experience with people, being 32 years in business and 8 years as governor. I'll let others determine the qualifications of the other candidates. I think I'm the best qualified guy to be President of the United States. I'm going to focus on that.
Okay. Does your last name make it harder for you to potentially get out of this race? Does being a Bush, would you feel like you were letting your family down if you lose this race?
No, there's no on the couch meditating my navel kind of thing here. We don't. That's not a Bush trait. It's a blessing. I mean, I walk into this diner, 3 people say, "Hey, I met your dad. I love your mother. Your brother did the right thing." So it's an entree as a candidate to be able to give people a sense of who I am. And some people, maybe a couple there that didn't, I'm marking them down as neutral. They didn't seem to warm up to the fact that here's another Bush showing up. So there's more good than bad, for sure.
Florida's former governor is also the topic of today's Bing Pulse question. Current troubles notwithstanding, will Jeb Bush win the Republican nomination? Go to pulse.msnbc.com to weigh in. You can keep voting throughout the show. We're going to share those results with you at the bottom of the broadcast. I want to bring in Brian Darling now, former communications director for Senator Rand Paul. Republican strategist Susan Del Percio is also here in the studio. Susan, first of all, what do you think of the interview? I mean, in terms of how Bush did.
Well, Casey did a great job setting up a real trail of questions that could show a lot of different sides of the governor, from his serious side to his personal side. And I think he did very okay. He doesn't
very okay,
because he doesn't have a personality that shines through. And there's part of this interview which you didn't get to show is about how he handled his daughter's addiction.
We're going to actually play that.
Okay, my apologies.
No.
And that really was a time where it was very revealing into his character, but somehow there wasn't that connection that you kind of hoped to make. Somehow there wasn't that connection that you kind of hoped to make with the candidate. There was some spark not quite there.
Brian, this is what Susan was just talking about. This is Jeb Bush speaking very candidly about his daughter's struggle with drug addiction. Take a listen.
In a very highly public way, she was caught trying to buy prescription drugs she didn't have a prescription for, and that created a big profile on her life. And thank goodness she got through it. It took incredible courage in this very public kind of process to go to drug court and to graduate. And she's been drug free, and I'm really proud of her. My wife and I have been engaged in all sorts of ways to try to help people understand this. And it's, based on his personal experience, I can tell you it's not easy.
So, Brian, yesterday, of course, we heard Chris Christie's emotional speech in New Hampshire. He was talking about addiction there. That speech, by the way, has gone viral. More than 5 million people have viewed it at last check. Ted Cruz last hour talked about his sister's death because of a drug overdose. And now we hear from Jeb Bush. These are very personal experiences with drug addiction. When candidates talk about addiction in personal terms like this, how does that resonate with voters?
Oh, I think it resonates very well. It shows that Jeb Bush is a father, and he's somebody who's had struggles in his life. He has had struggles with his daughter. And I think that's very important for him to be a normal human being, because most Americans look at him as a member of the Bush family and this elite family that's had a hammerlock in the White House of Republicans for a long time. But they don't know him as much as a person, as a dad, as somebody who cares about his daughter. So I think it's very helpful in the sense that it humanizes him and people can see him talking like a father.
And Brian makes a really good point about it humanizing him. What I'm really surprised of, it reminds me of Mitt Romney a bit. First, his opponent basically brands him early on, and then he has to come out of that. And then we hear about all these wonderful stories about Mitt Romney at the end that no one ever heard about. I'm so surprised that he chose not to introduce his family, even with his daughter, his wife, and their stories, which would have made him very human at the very beginning, and it would have taken part of the Bush brand off of him, because people would have seen his family.
You're speaking about Jeb Bush in the past tense. Do we is the campaign over?
Well, that's what's happened thus far. It's not, but if he doesn't have a really good reboot, the voters are going to give him the boot. It's not going to work.
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, obviously, Jeb Bush is struggling, and obviously interviews like this help him, but look at where he's at. He's in a terrible situation. You look at Hillary Clinton, who was in a similar situation walking into the election, a legacy. Somebody walked in and thought that she could just walk into the nomination. She pretty much has. She had some troubles, but Jeb Bush, the opposite. He's struggling at 4% in many national polls, in 5th place nationally, in 5th place in Iowa, 5th place in New Hampshire. He's doing terrible right now, and I think he's going to have to work very hard to change the minds of the American people and change perceptions and try and break out of the pack, because Susan, if he doesn't turn things around quickly, he's not going to make it.
Here's something else. You know, it was revealed today that the super PAC that's been supporting Jeb Bush has spent an eye-popping $16.5 million. He's at 4% with $16.5 million spent so far on television by an outside group.
And that outside group is run by the person who used to run his campaigns, and Mike Murphy, who does a great job, who knows Jeb Bush, knows how to package him, if you will. So it is very surprising. Normally you would say, well, maybe the super PAC doesn't know what he's doing. But these folks do. So there is something about the candidate that is not clicking. It's not a connection, and that's what he needs.
Susan Del Percio, good to have you. Brian Darling, who is clearly participating in No Shave November. Good to see you as well, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not too long ago, he said the American people were sick of hearing about Hillary Clinton's email.